The paper tears. Two sharp rips cut through the lobby like a slap, and Rowena Hargrove watches the pieces of her reservation flutter onto the polished mahogany counter. The young clerk's fingers are still moving, still tearing, and his smile stretches wide enough to show teeth. "There," he says. "Now we can move on." Rowena does not move. Her hands, spotted with age and steady as stone, rest at her sides. She is 73 years old. She has driven 4 hours through a winter storm. And this boy, this clerk with his perfect hair and his too-tight tie, has just torn up her confirmation like it was trash. The lobby of the Harbolite Grand smells like wet wool and overpriced coffee. Crystal chandeliers hang from the ceiling, throwing gold light across marble floors slick with melted snow. Behind Rowena, a line of travelers shifts and whispers. Someone's suitcase wheels squeak against the floor. The jazz music piping through hidden speakers keeps playing, soft and oblivious, as if nothing has happened. But something has happened. The clerk's name tag reads Trent Calder. He leans forward on the counter, his blue suit jacket bunching at the shoulders, and his eyes hold the particular cruelty of someone who believes he will never face consequences. "Ma'am," he says, "you're holding up real guests."
This is completely unacceptable. I've been waiting for over an hour. Sir, please calm down. We're handling it as quickly as possible.
She looks down at the torn pieces of paper, at the email confirmation she printed 3 days ago, at the timestamp that proves she booked this room 8 weeks in advance. The pieces lie scattered across the dark wood, white against brown, evidence of something ugly. From the corner of her eye, Rowena sees a woman in a black coat watching. The woman stands near the concierge desk, arms crossed, face unreadable. Older than Trent by 20 years, maybe more. A manager, perhaps. Someone who could stop this. The woman does not move. Rowena reaches down and begins gathering the torn pieces. Her fingers tremble, just slightly, and she hates that they do. She hates that this boy can see it. She hates that the people behind her can see it too. "I have a valid reservation," Rowena says quietly. "I paid in full." Tremulous. It is a short sound, sharp as broken glass. "People fake these all the time," he says. "You should try one of the budget places outside downtown. More your speed. More your speed." The suggestion hangs in the air between them, and Rowena understands exactly what it means. She is old. She is tired. She does not look like money. And in Trent Calder's world, that makes her nothing. The woman in the black coat takes a step closer. Her heels click against the marble, measured and slow. When she speaks, her voice carries the flat authority of someone used to being obeyed. "What's the problem here?" Trent straightens. "No reservation in the system, Ms. Merritt." She's trying to bully her way into a room. Rowena turns to face the woman. "That's not true." Sloane Merritt does not look at the torn paper. She does not look at the confirmation pieces in Rowena's hands. She looks at Trent, and something passes between them, quick and silent. "We're oversold," Sloane says. "It happens." "Then honor your walk policy," Rowena replies. "Put me in another hotel." Sloane's lips curve, not quite a smile. "You want us to pay for another hotel? Because you think you have a room here." "I don't think. I know." The lobby has gone quiet. Even the jazz seems to have faded. Rowena can feel the weight of watching eyes, the held breath of strangers who know something wrong is happening but will not speak. A young man in a bellhop uniform stands frozen near the elevator, his hands still on a luggage cart. His name tag reads Mateo, and his face holds the particular discomfort of someone witnessing cruelty he cannot stop. Sloane crosses her arms. "Ma'am, either you leave on your own, or we call security." The words fall like a verdict. Final. Absolute. And Rowena Hargrove, who has been dismissed and diminished and told to be quiet more times than she can count, does something unexpected. She straightens her spine. She lifts her chin. And she says 2 words that change everything. "Call them." If you have ever been treated like you were invisible, like you did not matter, like you were not worth basic respect, type "I've been there" in the comments right now. Because what happens next in this lobby is going to make your heart stop. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Trent's grin spreads wider. Sloane reaches for her phone. And neither of them notices the way Rowena's hand moves toward her purse, toward something hidden inside, toward a truth that is about to turn this entire hotel upside down. Sloane's fingers hover over the phone. "You're sure about this?" she asks, and there is something in her voice that sounds almost eager. Security doesn't play nice with difficult guests. Rowena does not answer. She stands perfectly still at the counter, the torn reservation pieces clutched against her navy coat, and watches the two people in front of her with eyes that have seen decades of moments exactly like this one. Trent leans back against the computer terminal, arms crossed over his chest. His posture radiates satisfaction, the easy confidence of a man who believes the story has already ended in his favor. "Look," he says, "we're doing you a favor here. The storm's getting worse. You don't want to be wandering around downtown at this hour." Rowena's gaze shifts to the window. Beyond the glass, Cleveland has disappeared into a wall of white. Snow falls in thick curtains, piling against the sidewalks, turning the streetlights into fuzzy yellow smears. The wind howls around the building's corners, rattling the revolving door with each gust. She drove through that storm. For hours on icy highways, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, because she needed to be here tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. "The roads are bad," Rowena says softly. "That's why I booked ahead." "And I'm telling you," Trent replies, "there's no booking." Behind Rowena, the line has stopped pretending to wait. A businessman in a rumpled suit watches openly, his phone forgotten in his hand. A young couple near the door whispers to each other, their faces tight with second-hand discomfort. An elderly man with a cane has turned completely around, his eyes fixed on the scene at the counter. Mateo, the bellhop, has not moved from his spot near the elevator. His hand still rests on the luggage cart, and his jaw is clenched so tight that Rowena can see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. He wants to help. She can tell. But he is young, and he needs this job, and intervening would cost him everything. Rowena understands. She has been young and powerless too. "May I speak with someone else?" she asks. "A general manager, perhaps?" Sloane's laugh is a sharp bark. "I am the night manager. There's no one above me until morning." "Then I'll wait until morning." "You'll wait in the lobby all night?" Trent shakes his head, his expression shifting from amusement to disbelief. "Lady, that's not how this works." "I paid for a room," Rowena says. "I have confirmation. I'm not leaving." Something flickers across Trent's face. Just for a moment, quick as a blink, his eyes dart to his computer screen. His fingers twitch toward the keyboard. And then he stops, and his jaw tightens, and he looks at Sloane. The look lasts less than a second. But Rowena sees it. She sees something else too. When Trent typed her name earlier, his pupils changed. They widened, then narrowed, then widened again. The reaction of someone who found something unexpected. Something he wasn't supposed to find. He saw her reservation. She is certain of it now. He saw it, and he chose to lie anyway. "The system is the system," Sloane says flatly. "If there's no booking, there's no booking. We can't conjure rooms out of thin air." "I'm not asking you to conjure anything. I'm asking you to honor a transaction." Sloane steps closer. She is taller than Rowena by several inches, and she uses that height now, looking down with an expression that mixes pity and contempt. "Sweetheart," she says, "I don't know what you think is happening here, but this isn't a courtroom. You don't get to argue your case. The answer is no." "Sweetheart." The word drips with condescension, and Rowena feels her cheeks flush. Not from embarrassment. From something older. Something that has been building for 73 years. She has been called sweetheart before. And honey. And dear. By men who wanted her to be quiet. By women who wanted her to disappear. By strangers and colleagues and even family members who assumed that her age and her gender and her soft voice meant she had nothing important to say. She has swallowed those moments over and over because fighting them cost too much. Because the world rarely rewarded women who pushed back. Because sometimes survival meant letting cruelty pass without comment. But tonight, something is different. Tonight, Rowena is not just an old woman trying to check into a hotel. Tonight she is here for a reason. You tore up my confirmation, she says quietly. In front of all these people. Trent shrugs. It was fake anyway. You don't know that. I know what I see. He gestures toward her worn coat and her sensible shoes and her silver hair pulled back in a practical bun. And what I see doesn't belong here. The lobby goes silent. Even the jazz seems to hold its breath. Rowena looks at Trent Calder, at his expensive haircut and his designer tie and his face full of certainty, and she makes a decision. She will not let this moment pass. She will not swallow this one. I would like your full name, she says. And I would like the name of your corporate office. Trent's smile falters. Just slightly. Why? Because tomorrow morning I intend to file a formal complaint. And I want to make sure I spell everything correctly. Sloane laughs again, but this time the sound is thinner. More brittle. File whatever you want, she says. No one reads those things. From across the lobby, the sound of footsteps echoes against the marble. Heavy footsteps. Deliberate. Rowena turns. 2 security guards are walking toward her. Both men are tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black uniforms with gold badges on their chests. Their faces are professionally blank, but their eyes are already assessing her, measuring the threat level of a 73-year-old woman in a navy coat. Sloane straightens, smoothing down her jacket. Finally, she says, this guest is refusing to leave. No reservation. Disrupting operations. The guards stop a few feet away. One of them, the older one with gray at his temples, tilts his head. Ma'am, he says. Is there a problem here? Rowena looks at him. Then at Sloane. Then at Trent, whose grin has returned, wider than ever. And she reaches into her purse. The purse is old. Brown leather, worn soft at the corners, the kind of thing a grandmother might carry to church on Sunday mornings. Rowena's fingers close around something inside, and the lobby seems to hold its breath. Trent takes a half step back. His grin wavers. Hey, he says. Hey, what are you? Rowena pulls out a folded piece of paper. Just paper. Nothing else. Trent exhales. His shoulders drop. Behind him, Sloane rolls her eyes. More fake documents? Sloane asks, how many copies did you print? Rowena unfolds the paper slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. The security guards watch with professional patience. The guests in the lobby lean forward, drawn by the tension they can feel but cannot name. This, Rowena says, is not a reservation. She holds up the paper. Even from several feet away, Trent can see the letterhead, corporate, official. The kind of document that comes from the top. This is a list, Rowena continues. A list of complaints filed against this property in the last 6 months. Complaints that were supposed to reach corporate headquarters. Complaints that never arrived. Sloane's face goes very still. 47 complaints, Rowena says. 47 guests who reported overcharges, reservation problems, denied refunds, and staff misconduct. 47 people whose concerns simply vanished from the system. I don't know what you're talking about. Sloane's voice is flat, but something moves behind her eyes. That document could be anything. You could have typed it yourself. I could have, Rowena agrees. But I didn't. She folds the paper and slides it back into her purse. Then she reaches in again, and this time she pulls out a small black case. Leather. Expensive. The kind executives carry. 18 of those complaints, Rowena says, mentioned a clerk who tore up their paperwork. 11 mentioned a manager who threatened to call security on guests who asked questions. 9 mentioned being told to try budget properties outside downtown. Her eyes move to Trent, who has gone pale beneath his perfect hair. Sound familiar? Trent opens his mouth. Closes it. Opens it again. That's not. He turns to Sloane. She's making this up. She has to be. Sloane does not respond. Her arms are crossed tight against her chest, and her jaw is set in a hard line. The casual cruelty from earlier has vanished, replaced by something more careful. More calculating. Ma'am, the older security guard says, I'm going to need you to come with us. We can sort this out in the back office. Rowena shakes her head. No. We're going to sort this out right here. That's not how. I'm not finished. The guard stops. Something in Rowena's voice, some quiet authority, makes him wait. Rowena opens the black leather case. Inside is a single card. Matte black. No logos. No decoration. Just a name embossed in silver letters. She does not show it yet. 3 Harbolite properties, she says, have reported unusual profit increases in the last 2 quarters. Cleveland, Detroit, and Columbus. The numbers didn't make sense at first. Revenue was up, but occupancy was down. How do you make more money with fewer guests? The lobby is absolutely silent now. Even the background jazz has stopped, replaced by some ambient track too soft to register. The answer, Rowena says, is that you don't report all the guests. You overbook, you turn people away, you keep their deposits. You target the ones least likely to fight back. The elderly. The immigrants. The working-class families who saved for months to afford one nice vacation. A woman in the line gasps. The businessman with the phone has started recording, his device held low at his side. You tear up their reservations, Rowena says. You make them feel small. You count on them being too tired, too intimidated, too beaten down to make a scene. Her voice has not risen. It has stayed steady and quiet, the voice of someone describing weather patterns or traffic conditions. But the words land like blows. $62,000, Rowena says. That's the estimate. $62,000 stolen from guests at this property alone in the past 6 months. Stolen through a system of deliberate humiliation and manufactured confusion. Trent makes a sound. It might be a laugh. It might be a sob. You're insane, he says. You're absolutely insane. Who even are you? Rowena looks at him. Really looks, the way a scientist might examine a specimen under glass. When you typed my name into your system, she says, what did you see? Trent's mouth opens. Not just no reservation. Something else. A flag. A note. Something that made you look at Ms. Merritt. Something that made her nod. The silence stretches. Sloane's face has gone from careful to frozen. The security guards exchange glances. You saw something, Rowena says, that scared you. And instead of handling it properly, you decided to attack. Because that's what guilty people do. They push harder. They try to make the problem go away. She lifts the black card from the leather case. But I'm not going away. The card catches the chandelier light. Silver on black. 2 words. Rowena Hargrove. And below that, a single title. Founder. Trent's grin does not just fade. It collapses. His face goes white, then gray, then something approaching green. His hands grip the counter edge so hard his knuckles turn the color of bone. Sloane makes a sound deep in her throat. Her arms uncross. Her body rocks back, just half a step, as if she has been physically pushed. The older security guard leans in, reads the card, and his entire posture transforms. Ma'am, he says, his voice completely different now, soft and respectful, I apologize for the confusion. How can we help you? Rowena does not look at him. She is watching Trent and Sloane, watching the understanding dawn on their faces like a slow and terrible sunrise. You tore up my reservation, she says, because you thought I was powerless. You chose humiliation because you believed there would be no consequences. You built an entire system on the assumption that people like me, old people, tired people, people who don't look like money, would simply accept being treated like garbage. She sets the card on the counter, directly on top of the torn reservation pieces. I built this company 41 years ago. 1 property, 1 loan, 1 promise, that no guest would ever be treated like a problem. Her voice finally rises, just slightly, carrying across the silent lobby. And now I want you to explain, very carefully, why your system had a flag on my account. Why that flag made you choose cruelty. And what, exactly, you thought you were protecting. The chandelier light catches her silver hair, her worn navy coat, her face lined with 73 years of living. She looks like someone's grandmother. She looks like nothing special, And that is exactly what they counted on. What happens when people who built their power on dismissing others suddenly realize they dismissed the wrong person? Stay with me, because Rowena Hargrove is just getting started, and the next words out of Trent's mouth are going to change everything. Trent cannot speak. His mouth works, opening and closing like a fish pulled from water, but no sound emerges. His hands have released the counter edge, and now they hang at his sides, trembling visibly. Sloane tries to recover. She pulls herself upright, squares her shoulders, and attempts a smile that looks more like a grimace. "Mrs. Hargrove," she says, "I had no idea. If you just identified yourself from the beginning." "I did identify myself." Rowena's voice cuts clean. "I gave my name. I provided my confirmation. I explained my booking clearly and politely. You chose not to listen. There must have been a system error." "There was no error." The words fall like stones into still water. Rowena picks up her founder's card and slides it back into the leather case, her movements slow and deliberate. "I watched Mr. Calder's face when he typed my name. I saw his eyes move to that screen. I saw the recognition. And then I saw him decide to lie." Trent makes a strangled sound. His face has progressed from gray to something closer to yellow, and sweat has broken out along his hairline. I saw a flag, but I thought." "What did you think?" The question hangs in the air. Rowena waits, her hands folded over her purse, her expression patient and terrible. "The flag," Trent whispers. "It said VIP status. But it also said test account. I thought maybe someone in corporate was checking up on us. Running some kind of evaluation. I thought if we handled it wrong." "So you handled it worse." Trent's mouth snaps shut. "You saw a test account," Rowena says. "You assumed someone was watching. And your response was to tear up the paperwork, accuse me of fraud, and threaten me with security." She lets that sink in for a moment. "What does that tell you about how you treat normal guests? The ones who aren't test accounts? The ones who don't have flags or VIP status or any power at all?" The lobby remains frozen. Somewhere near the back, a child asks a question, and a parent shushes them quickly. Matteo, the bellhop, has released his luggage cart. He stands alone by the elevator, his face a mixture of vindication and fear. "Mrs. Hargrove." Sloane's voice has dropped to something approaching pleading. "We can discuss this privately. There's no need to—" "No need to what?" "Make a scene." Rowena turns to face her directly. "You threatened to have me removed by security. You called me sweetheart. You allowed your employee to destroy my documents while you watched. In front of witnesses. While recording devices captured everything." Her gaze sweeps across the lobby, landing briefly on the businessman still holding his phone. "The scene has already happened, Miss Merritt. What we're doing now is determining consequences." Sloane's composure cracks. Her professional mask slips, revealing something underneath, not remorse, but calculation. She is trying to figure out how to survive this. "The complaints," Sloane says quickly. "The 47 complaints. Those were all misunderstandings. Communication errors. The system works fine when it's not being deliberately sabotaged." Rowena reaches into her purse again. This time she pulls out a thin stack of papers, folded in thirds. "I have internal emails," she says. "Messages between this property and regional management discussing complaint suppression. I have financial records showing deposits retained from guests who were turned away. I have surveillance footage requests that were denied or delayed until the storage period expired." She unfolds the papers. "I have names. 23 employees across 3 properties who participated in this scheme. 7 managers who approved it. And 3 regional directors who looked the other way because the quarterly numbers were too good to question." Trent sits down. He does not choose to sit. His legs simply fold beneath him, dropping him onto the small stool behind the counter. His face is the color of old milk. "I'm going to be fired," he says. "To no one. To everyone. I'm going to be fired. I'm going to lose everything." "Yes," Rowena says simply. "You are." There is no cruelty in her voice. No satisfaction. Just a statement of fact, delivered the way one might note that rain is wet or fire is hot. But that's not why I'm here. The lobby shifts. The watching guests lean forward. Even Sloane, still standing frozen near the counter, tilts her head with something like curiosity. I built Harbolite in 1983, Rowena says. One property. A converted motel off Interstate 71. I was 32 years old. I had $12,000 in savings, a business degree from a community college, and a husband who told me every day that I was wasting my time. She pauses, and her eyes grow distant for a moment, looking at something beyond the marble floors and crystal chandeliers. He left me before we were profitable. Took half of everything in the divorce. I rebuilt anyway. One property became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became 147 locations across 18 states. Her focus returns to the present, sharp and clear. And somewhere along the way, I stopped watching. I trusted the systems. I believed the reports. I retired to my house in Shaker Heights and attended board meetings by video and assumed that my company was still the company I built. She lifts the stack of papers. 6 months ago, a former guest sent me a letter. Her name was Margaret Chin, 81 years old. She tried to check into the Columbus property for her granddaughter's graduation. They told her there was no reservation. They suggested she try a budget property outside downtown. They made her feel so small that she sat in her car and cried for an hour before driving home. Rowena's voice remains steady, but something moves beneath the surface. Margaret Chin died 2 months later. Heart attack. Her daughter wrote to me afterward. She said her mother never forgot that day at the hotel. Never stopped feeling ashamed of being treated like nothing. The lobby is completely silent. Even the ambient music has stopped. That, Rowena says, is why I'm here. She turns to face the security guards, who have been standing motionless throughout her speech. I want this property's complete financial records for the past 18 months. I want surveillance footage from every lobby camera dating back 6 months. I want employee communication logs, complaint databases, and refund processing files. The older guard nods slowly. We can coordinate with the regional office. You'll coordinate with me. Tonight. I'm not leaving until I have everything. She turns back to Trent and Sloane. You two will remain on property until further notice. You will not access any computers. You will not contact any other employees. You will wait in the back office until corporate legal arrives, which should be approximately 4 hours. Trent's head drops into his hands. Sloane opens her mouth to protest, then closes it. There is nothing left to say. Rowena picks up the torn pieces of her reservation from the counter. She examines them for a moment, these fragments of paper that were supposed to represent her complete insignificance. Then she slides them into her purse, alongside the founder's card and the internal documents and all the evidence of corruption she has spent 6 months quietly collecting. One more thing, she says. Everyone waits. I want to see the flag. The one in your system. The note that made you decide I was worth hurting. Trent looks up from his hands. His eyes are red. It just said test account, he whispers. VIP status. Priority handling required. That's all. There was a code. Letters and numbers. I didn't know what it meant. Rowena nods. Show me. Trent hesitates, then slowly turns to the computer. His fingers move across the keyboard, pulling up screens, entering passwords. The monitor glow reflects off his pale face. And then he stops. His breathing changes. His hands freeze above the keys. What? Sloane demands. What is it? Trent turns the screen so Rowena can see. The flag on her account is exactly what he described. Test account. VIP status. Priority handling required. But there is something else now. Something new. A notation added in the past hour, time-stamped while Rowena was standing at this very counter being humiliated. The notation reads, Alert triggered. Regional office notified. Stand by for instructions. And below that, a name. The name of the person who created the alert system. The name that makes Rowena's blood run cold. Who created that flag? Who set up the alert? And why does that name make even Rowena Hargrove hesitate? The name on the screen is James Merritt. Rowena reads it 3 times. Then she looks at Sloane. Sloane, whose last name is also Merritt. Sloane, whose face has gone from frozen to absolutely bloodless. Your husband? Rowena asks quietly. Sloane shakes her head. The motion is small and tight. Brother. The word drops into the silence like a stone into deep water. Rowena feels the shape of things shifting around her, the puzzle pieces rearranging into a pattern she had not anticipated. James Merritt, Regional Director of Operations for the Midwest Division. The man responsible for overseeing 12 properties, including this one. The man who would have received all those vanished complaints. The man who signed off on the financial reports showing impossible profit margins. He set up the flag system, Rowena says. It is not a question. Sloane's jaw works. She is calculating again, running scenarios, looking for escape routes. I don't know anything about that. You're lying. I'm not. Ms. Merritt. Rowena's voice has not risen, but it carries weight now, the kind of authority that comes from 40 years of building and fighting and refusing to be dismissed. Your brother created a system to flag suspicious accounts. He positioned you as night manager at a property known for complaint suppression. And when that flag triggered tonight, you happened to be standing right here, ready to escalate the confrontation. She pauses. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. The security guards have stepped back, unconsciously distancing themselves from whatever is unfolding. The guests in the lobby are motionless, watching a drama they do not fully understand but cannot look away from. Mateo, the bellhop, has tears running down his face. He is not making a sound. I want to know, Rowena says, how deep this goes. Sloane's composure finally shatters. Her face contorts, cycling through fear and anger and something that might be desperation. You don't understand, she says. You can't just, people have families. People have mortgages. James has 3 kids. His wife has medical issues. If this comes out, people who were robbed might get their money back. People who were humiliated might get an apology. People like Margaret Chin might be remembered as something other than collateral damage. Margaret Chin was one person. The shout echoes through the lobby. Several guests flinch. Sloane's hand flies to her mouth as if she could push the words back in. One person, Rowena repeats softly. 81 years old. Just wanted to watch her granddaughter graduate. Sat in her car and cried because your system made her feel worthless. She steps closer to Sloane, close enough that they are nearly eye to eye. Every person is one person, Ms. Merritt. Every guest who walked through those doors trusting that they would be treated with basic dignity. Every elderly traveler, every tired parent, every young person saving for months to afford one nice experience. They were all one person. And your brother, and you, and everyone else involved in this scheme decided that their one-personness made them disposable. Sloane is crying now. Mascara runs down her cheeks in dark streams. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispers. It started small. Just a few complaints that got lost. A few deposits that took too long to refund. James said no one would notice. He said we were just smoothing out the numbers. Smoothing out the numbers. Rowena's voice is flat. By stealing from guests. We gave refunds eventually. Most of them. The ones who pushed hard enough. The ones who pushed hard enough. Rowena nods slowly. And the rest? The ones who were too tired, too ashamed, too beaten down to keep fighting? What happened to them? Sloane cannot answer. Her whole body is shaking. Trent has not moved from his stool. He watches the exchange with hollow eyes, a man who has realized that he is a small piece of something much larger and much uglier than he ever imagined. Rowena turns to the older security guard. I need to make a phone call. Please escort Ms. Merritt and Mr. Calder to separate locations. They are not to communicate with each other or with anyone outside this building. The guard nods. His partner moves forward, gently taking Sloane's arm. This isn't over, Sloane says. Her voice is ragged. James has connections. He has friends on the board. He'll fight this. I'm counting on it. The words stop everyone. Rowena's face holds no anger, no vindication. Just a calm certainty that seems almost peaceful. I've been building this case for 6 months, she says. Quietly, carefully. I wanted to see exactly how far the rot had spread. I wanted to know who was protecting it and why. Your brother has been careful, Ms. Merritt, but not careful enough. And now I have everything I need. She pulls her phone from her purse. General counsel is already on standby. So is an independent auditor. So is a journalist from the Cleveland Plain Dealer who has been waiting very patiently for permission to publish. Sloane's face crumples. You planned this. All of it. The reservation, the flag, the confrontation. You wanted us to attack you. Rowena dials a number. The phone rings once, twice. I wanted to give you a chance to prove me wrong, she says. I wanted to walk in here and be treated the way every guest deserves to be treated. I wanted to discover that the complaints were exaggerated, that the numbers were mistaken, that my company was still the company I built. The phone connects. A voice on the other end says something. But you tore up my reservation, Rowena says into the phone. They did exactly what I feared. Send everyone. She hangs up. The lobby lights seem brighter now, harsher. The chandeliers throw shadows across the marble floor, making the space feel less like a luxury hotel and more like a courtroom. Ma'am. Mateo's voice is small. The bellhop has stepped forward from his spot near the elevator, his hands twisting in front of him. I want you to know. I tried to report it. 3 times. But the complaints just disappeared. Rowena looks at him. Her expression softens. What's your name? Mateo. Mateo Reyes. I've been here 2 years. Did you ever participate in turning guests away? In denying reservations? Mateo shakes his head fiercely. Never. I carried luggage. I helped people find their rooms. I tried to make things right when I could. Rowena nods. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a business card. A different one this time, plain white with a phone number. Call this number tomorrow morning. Ask for Patricia Walsh. Tell her Rowena sent you. Mateo takes the card with trembling hands. What is it? Human resources for corporate headquarters. I'm going to need people I can trust when we rebuild. People who try to do the right thing. Mateo's eyes fill. He nods, clutching the card like a lifeline. Rowena turns back to the lobby. The guests have begun to move again, whispering, processing, trying to understand what they have witnessed. The businessman with the phone has stopped recording, but his face holds the particular expression of someone who knows they have captured something important. Ladies and gentlemen, Rowena says, raising her voice just enough to carry. I apologize for the disruption to your evening. If any of you have experienced problems with your reservations or billing during your stay at any Harbolite property, I would ask you to speak with the security staff before you leave. Your information will be handled personally by my office. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Several people begin moving toward the guards. Sloane, still being escorted toward the back hallway, turns one last time. You really think this changes anything? Her voice is bitter. There are systems like this everywhere. Every company, every industry. You can't fix all of it. Rowena considers the question. No, she says finally. I probably can't. But I can fix this. And I can make it very, very clear what happens when the people at the bottom decide to push back against the people at the top. She looks around the lobby one more time, at the chandeliers and the marble and the gold-framed mirrors reflecting decades of carefully constructed luxury. This company was built on one promise, she says. That no guest would ever be treated like a problem. Tonight, that promise was broken. Tomorrow we start keeping it again. The security guard leads Sloane away. Trent follows, head down, steps unsteady. And Rowena Hargrove, 73 years old, stands alone in the lobby of a hotel she built from nothing, watching the first cracks appear in a system that thought it could never be broken. But the night is not over. The alert that triggered when Rowena's account was flagged has already reached James Merritt. And in approximately 3 hours, he will walk through those same lobby doors, armed with lawyers and excuses and a desperation that makes people dangerous. The question is not whether Rowena can win this fight. The question is whether she can survive what comes next. The elevator doors open at 2:47 a.m., and James Merritt steps into the lobby like a man walking into his own funeral. He is tall, broad shoulders filling out a charcoal overcoat that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His hair is silver at the temples, styled with the kind of precision that speaks to vanity and control. But his face tells a different story. The skin around his eyes is tight. His jaw is clenched so hard the muscles jump beneath the surface. And his hands, shoved deep into his coat pockets, are balled into fists. Behind him, 2 lawyers follow in lockstep. A man and a woman, both carrying leather briefcases, both wearing expressions carefully calibrated to reveal nothing. Rowena watches from the concierge desk, where she has spent the past 3 hours reviewing documents on a borrowed laptop. The security guards have positioned themselves near the main entrance. The lobby is empty now, cleared of guests, the chandeliers dimmed to half power. James stops in the center of the marble floor. His eyes find Rowena immediately. Mrs. Hargrove. His voice is controlled, professional, the voice of a man who has rehearsed this moment during the entire drive from Columbus. I came as soon as I heard there was a misunderstanding. Rowena closes the laptop. She does not stand. There was no misunderstanding, James. The use of his first name lands visibly. His shoulders tighten. The lawyers exchange a glance. I've been with this company for 16 years, James says. I've dedicated my career to building the Midwest division into one of our most profitable regions. If there have been irregularities, I assure you they were the result of individual bad actors, not systemic policy. Individual bad actors. Rowena folds her hands on top of the laptop. Like your sister? James does not flinch. He has prepared for this. Sloan made mistakes. I don't deny that. But she was under enormous pressure to meet performance targets. The guidance from regional came from you. Silence. James takes a breath. Releases it slowly. Mrs. Hargrove, I understand you're upset. What happened to you tonight was inexcusable. Trent Calder will be terminated immediately. Sloan will face disciplinary review. But escalating this into some kind of corporate witch hunt helps no one. Rowena stands. The movement is slow, deliberate, the motion of someone who has all the time in the world. $62,000, she says. That's the conservative estimate. Money taken from guests through deliberate overbooking, deposit retention, and complaint suppression. Money that flowed through your division's accounts. Money that inflated your performance numbers and justified your bonuses. The female lawyer steps forward. Mrs. Hargrove, any allegations of financial impropriety should be handled through proper corporate channels. Making accusations in an informal setting like this could expose the company to, I am the company. The words cut through the lobby like a blade. Rowena walks toward James, her sensible shoes clicking against the marble. She stops 6 feet away, close enough to see the sweat beading at his hairline. I built Harbolite from nothing, she says. 1 property, 1 loan, 1 promise. And for 40 years, I believed that promise was being kept. I trusted people like you to protect what I created. Her voice drops. You betrayed that trust. James's composure cracks. Just slightly, just for a moment, but Rowena sees it. The flash of something in his eyes that is not remorse but calculation. He is not sorry for what he did. He is sorry he got caught. The board will have questions, James says. They'll want to know why you conducted this investigation without their knowledge. They'll want to understand why you chose confrontation over collaboration. Let them ask. They might not like the answers. The threat hangs in the air between them. Rowena feels its weight, understands its implications. James Merritt has spent 16 years building alliances within the company. He knows board members by their children's names. He golfs with major shareholders. He has cultivated relationships specifically designed for moments exactly like this one. He is betting that his connections are stronger than her legacy. I have something to show you, Rowena says. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a USB drive. But unremarkable. This contains 18 months of internal communications. Emails between you and property managers discussing, and I quote, revenue optimization through selective service denial. Spreadsheets tracking guest deposits that were never refunded. And a particularly interesting memo from last March where you outline a strategy for targeting guests who are, again I quote, statistically unlikely to pursue formal complaints. James's face goes white. That memo specifically mentions elderly travelers, non-English speakers, and families with young children. You called them low-resistance demographics. The male lawyer takes a step backward. Almost imperceptibly, almost unconsciously, he is creating distance between himself and his client. Those documents were obtained illegally, James says. His voice has changed. Higher. Tighter. Whatever you think you have, it won't hold up. Chain of custody, privacy violations, unauthorized access. The documents were compiled by our internal audit department at my personal request. Everything was obtained through proper channels using my executive access codes. Rowena holds up the USB drive. This isn't evidence from a whistleblower, James. This is evidence from the founder. James stares at the drive. His atoms apple bobs as he swallows. What do you want? The question is quiet. Defeated. Rowena considers it. I want you to resign. Tonight. Effective immediately. I want your sister terminated, along with every property manager who participated in this scheme. I want a full forensic audit of all 3 affected properties. And I want every guest who was wrong to receive a personal apology and complete restitution. That's millions of dollars. It's the right thing to do. James laughs. It is a hollow sound, empty of humor. The right thing. You've been retired for 8 years, Mrs. Hargrove. Living in your nice house in Shaker Heights while the rest of us kept this company running. You have no idea what the right thing even looks like anymore. Rowena's expression does not change. I know what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like tearing up an old woman's reservation because you assume she won't fight back. It doesn't look like building a system designed to exploit the most vulnerable guests. It doesn't look like teaching employees that cruelty is acceptable as long as it improves the quarterly numbers. She steps closer. I may have been absent, James, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving until this is fixed. The lawyers are whispering to each other. The security guards have moved closer, sensing the shift in the room's energy. James looks at Rowena for a long moment. Then his shoulders drop. I want immunity, he says quietly. For Sloane. She was following my instructions. She didn't design the system, she just implemented it. No. She has 2 children. She watched while your employee tore up my paperwork. She called me sweetheart and threatened me with security. She made a choice. Everyone deserves a second chance. Rowena tilts her head. Did Margaret Chin get a second chance? Did the 81-year-old woman who sat in her car crying deserve to spend her final months remembering how your system made her feel worthless? James has no answer. Choices have consequences, Rowena says. You taught that lesson to hundreds of guests. Now you get to learn it yourself. She turns toward the security guards. Please escort Mr. Merritt and his attorneys to the conference room. They can wait there until corporate counsel arrives at 7 a.m. The guards move forward. James does not resist. He walks between them like a man in a dream, his expensive shoes silent on the marble floor. At the elevator he stops. Turns. You think this fixes anything? His voice carries across the empty lobby. You think firing me and my sister changes how the world works? There will be another James Merritt tomorrow. Another system. Another way to squeeze profit from people who can't fight back. Rowena meets his eyes. Maybe, but not in my company. Not while I'm still breathing. The elevator doors close. And Rowena Hargrove stands alone in the lobby of the Harbolite Grand, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and marble floors and 40 years of memories, knowing that the hardest part is still to come. Because James was right about one thing. The board will have questions. And not everyone will like her answers. What happens when the person who built everything discovers that the system has turned against her? Keep watching, because in 12 hours, Rowena will face the most powerful people in her company, and only one side can win. The boardroom smells like old leather and fresh fear. Rowena enters at exactly 9 a.m., her navy coat replaced by a gray blazer she keeps in her car for emergencies. Her silver hair is pulled back. Her face is composed. She has not slept in 31 hours, but her eyes are clear and sharp. 12 people sit around the mahogany table. Board members, shareholders, the chief financial officer, the head of legal. They watched her build this company from nothing. They collected dividends while she collected complaints. And now they sit in their ergonomic chairs, waiting to see which way the wind will blow. Harrison Cole sits at the head of the table. Current 64 years old. He joined Harbolite when it was still small enough to know everyone's name, and he has guided its expansion with the steady hand of a man who values stability above all else. He does not look stable now. His tie is slightly crooked. His coffee cup sits untouched, growing cold. "Rowena," he says. "Thank you for coming. I was going to come whether you thanked me or not." A ripple of discomfort moves through the room. Rowena takes her seat at the opposite end of the table, directly facing Harrison. "I assume everyone has been briefed," she says. Harrison nods. "We've reviewed the preliminary findings. The situation is serious. The situation is criminal. That's not been determined. $62,000 stolen from guests through systematic fraud. Complaints suppressed. Refunds delayed until people gave up. Employees trained to target vulnerable populations." Rowena's voice remains level. "If that's not criminal, Harrison, we need new lawyers." The head of legal, a woman named Patricia Vance, clears her throat. "Mrs. Hargrove, the legal implications are still being assessed. What we can say is that the company faces significant exposure. Class action liability, regulatory scrutiny, reputational damage. Our priority should be containment." Containment. Rowena repeats the word as if tasting something bitter. "You mean cover up?" "I mean managing the narrative. Controlling what information reaches the public and when. Ensuring that any settlement discussions happen quietly, without media involvement." Rowena looks around the table. 11 faces stare back at her, waiting. "Let me tell you what I observed last night," she says. "I walked into one of our properties as an ordinary guest. I waited in line. I presented my reservation. And I was treated like garbage." She pauses. "Not because there was a computer error. Not because the staff was overwhelmed. Because I looked like someone who wouldn't fight back. Tired. Unimportant." Harrison shifts in his chair. "The employee who tore up my paperwork has been terminated," he says. "The night manager is on administrative leave pending investigation. Regional Director Merritt resigned this morning. We're taking this seriously." "Are you?" "Of course we are." Rowena reaches into her bag and pulls out a folder. She slides it across the table toward Harrison. That folder contains the names of 23 employees across 3 properties who participated in this scheme, 7 managers who approved it, and 3 regional directors who looked the other way. Harrison opens the folder. His face drains of color as he reads. "Some of these people have been with us for over a decade," he says quietly. "Yes. They have families, mortgages, children in college. So did the guests they stole from." The room falls silent. The air conditioning hums. Somewhere in the building, a phone rings and is quickly silenced. A board member named Franklin Pierce speaks up. He is 72 years old, one of the original investors, a man who remembers when Harbolite was just a dream Rowena pitched in his living room. "Rowena," he says gently, "what exactly are you proposing?" "Full accountability. Every person on that list faces termination and potential criminal referral. Every guest who was wronged receives personal notification and complete restitution. And we make a public statement acknowledging what happened." "A public statement?" Patricia Vance looks horrified. "That would be catastrophic. Stock price alone." "I don't care about stock price. The shareholders. I am a shareholder. The largest individual shareholder in this company. And I would rather watch the stock drop to 0 than protect the people who turned my company into a machine for exploiting the vulnerable." Harrison holds up his hands. "Let's take a breath here. Everyone wants the same thing. We all want to fix this. The question is how." "The question," Rowena says, "is whether you have the courage to do what's right even when it costs you." Franklin Pierce leans forward. Rowena, I've known you for 40 years. I believed in you when no one else did. But what you're describing, this kind of public reckoning, it could destroy everything you built. What I built was a company that treated people with dignity. What exists now is something else. She stands. I'm going to make this very simple. Either the board authorizes full disclosure and accountability, or I go public on my own. I have documentation. I have witnesses. And I have a journalist who has been waiting 6 months for permission to publish. Patricia Vance's pen clatters to the table. You would destroy your own company? I would save it. Rowena's voice carries the weight of 4 decades. The company I built was never about marble lobbies and crystal chandeliers. It was about a promise. A promise that every guest, no matter who they were or what they looked like, would be treated like they mattered. She looks around the room one more time. That promise was broken. And the only way to fix it is to tear down everything that broke it, even if it hurts. Harrison Cole stares at her for a long moment. Then he looks down at the folder, at the list of names, at the evidence of corruption he can no longer pretend does not exist. We need to vote, he says quietly. Rowena nods. You have 1 hour. I'll be in the lobby. She turns and walks out of the boardroom, leaving 12 people to decide the fate of everything she has ever built. The door closes behind her. And in the silence that follows, Franklin Pierce is the first to speak. She'll do it, he says. She'll burn it all down. Harrison looks at the door where Rowena just stood. I know, he says. That's why we have to let her win. The vote that follows will reshape Harbolite forever. But the results are not what anyone expects, and the person who tries to stop it will reveal a secret that has been hidden for 16 years. The vote passes 9-3. Rowena hears the news in the lobby from Harrison himself, who walks out of the boardroom looking like a man who has aged 10 years in 60 minutes. His tie is now completely undone, hanging loose around his collar. Full disclosure, he says. Public statement. Complete restitution. The board agreed to everything. Rowena nods. She does not smile. Who voted against? Patricia Vance. The legal exposure concerns her. Harrison pauses. And 2 others who felt we should try containment first. Which 2? Harrison hesitates. Marcus Webb. And Donald Ashford. The names settle into Rowena's mind like puzzle pieces finding their place. Marcus Webb joined the board 3 years ago, recruited by James Merritt personally. Donald Ashford has been a silent partner for nearly a decade, rarely attending meetings, rarely speaking up. Silent partners often have the most to hide. I want their financial records, Rowena says. Personal investments, consulting agreements, anything that ties them to the affected properties. You think they're involved? I think James Merritt didn't build this system alone. He had help. Protection. Someone who made sure the right questions never got asked. Harrison runs a hand through his thinning hair. Rowena, if board members are implicated, this becomes something much bigger than employee misconduct. It was always something bigger. We just didn't want to see it. The lobby doors open, and a young woman enters. She is perhaps 30, with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun and a press badge hanging from her neck. Vanessa Torres. Cleveland Plain Dealer. The journalist who has been waiting 6 months for this story. Rowena meets her in the center of the lobby. Ms. Torres. Thank you for coming. Vanessa's eyes sweep the space, taking in the chandeliers, the marble, the carefully constructed luxury. Mrs. Hargrove. I have to admit, when you first contacted me, I thought it was a hoax. The founder of Harbolite Hotels wants to expose corruption in her own company? That's not how these stories usually go. How do they usually go? Cover-ups. Settlements. Confidentiality agreements that make sure the truth never sees daylight. Rowena gestures toward a quiet corner of the lobby, away from the security guards and the handful of employees watching nervously from behind the front desk. I have documents for you. Emails, financial records, internal memos. Everything you need to understand what happened and who was responsible. Vanessa pulls out a recorder. May I? Please. The red light blinks on. Mrs. Hargrove, why are you doing this? You could have handled this internally. Quiet terminations. Private settlements. No one would have known. Rowena considers the question. Because the people who were hurt deserve to know they weren't crazy. They deserve to know that what happened to them was real, and it was wrong, and someone in power finally cared enough to say so publicly. Even if it destroys your company's reputation? Reputation isn't something you build through press releases. It's something you earn through actions. For 40 years, Harbolite earned its reputation by treating people well. In the last 3 years, we've been trading on that reputation while doing the opposite. She pauses. A reputation built on lies isn't worth protecting. Vanessa scribbles notes. Can you tell me about the night that started all this? The confrontation at the front desk. Rowena describes it. The storm. The line. Trent's dismissive smile. The torn reservation. Sloane's threats. The security guards. The moment she pulled out her founder's card and watched 2 people realize they had just humiliated the woman who built everything around them. Vanessa listens without interrupting. When Rowena finishes, the journalist is quiet for a long moment. That must have been satisfying, she says finally, watching them realize their mistake. No. The word comes out harder than Rowena intended. It wasn't satisfying. It was heartbreaking. Because I realized that my company had become exactly what I built it to prevent. A place where cruelty was policy and dignity was optional. She looks toward the front desk, where new staff members are checking in guests with careful, nervous smiles. I kept thinking about Margaret Chin, the woman who inspired me to start this investigation. She never got to see their faces when they realized what they'd done. She died believing she was worthless, because people I employed taught her to believe it. Vanessa clicks off the recorder. I'm going to write this story, she says. And it's going to change things. Not just for Harbolite, but for the entire industry. The way hotels treat vulnerable guests, the systems that allow abuse to hide in plain sight, all of it. I hope so. But I need to ask you one more question. Off the record. Rowena waits. Why did you really come here that night? You could have sent investigators. You could have conducted audits. Instead, you drove 4 hours through a storm to check into a hotel under your own name. Why? Rowena is silent for a long moment. Because I needed to know what it felt like, she says quietly. To be the person on the other side of the counter. To be old and tired and treated like nothing by people half my age. She meets Vanessa's eyes. I needed to remember why I built this company in the first place. And I needed to feel, in my own body, what we had taken from so many people. Their dignity. Their belief that the world could be kind. Vanessa nods slowly. One more thing. The 3 board members who voted against disclosure. My sources tell me 2 of them have financial ties to the regional directors you exposed. Rowena's expression sharpens. Which 2? Marcus Webb and Donald Ashford. They've been receiving consulting fees from a company called Midwest Hospitality Partners. That company is owned by James Merritt. The information lands like a physical blow. Rowena feels her heart rate increase, feels the pieces clicking into place. They were protecting him, she says, from inside the board. It gets worse. Vanessa lowers her voice. The consulting fees started 16 years ago, right after James Merritt was promoted to regional director, and the person who approved his promotion. She pauses. Was your late husband, George Hargrove, the co-founder? What happens when the corruption you're fighting leads back to the person you trusted most? The truth about George Hargrove is about to surface, and it will change everything Rowena believed about her own life. George Hargrove died 12 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. The doctors said he went quickly, which was supposed to be a comfort. Rowena buried him in the cemetery behind their church, gave a eulogy about partnership and perseverance, and spent the following decade believing she understood the man she had been married to for 31 years. She was wrong. The documents arrive by courier at 3 p.m., delivered to the Harbolite Grand's conference room where Rowena has set up temporary headquarters. Patricia Vance, despite voting against disclosure, has proven surprisingly helpful in locating historical records. Perhaps guilt has its uses after all. Rowena spreads the papers across the table. Bank statements. Corporate minutes. Handwritten notes in handwriting she would recognize anywhere. George's handwriting. The story emerges slowly, like a photograph developing in acid. 16 years ago, when Rowena was recovering from surgery and George was handling daily operations alone, he made a decision. He promoted James Merritt to regional director despite concerns from other executives. He approved a new compensation structure that rewarded revenue growth over customer satisfaction. And he established Midwest Hospitality Partners as a consulting firm that would receive fees from the company he co-founded. Fees that went directly into accounts George controlled. Rowena reads the numbers 3 times. $200,000 a year. For 16 years. A total of over $3 million siphoned from the company through a shell corporation her husband created. Her hands do not tremble this time. She is beyond trembling. He knew, she says quietly. Harrison Cole sits across the table, watching her with an expression caught between sympathy and wariness. The evidence suggests he designed the original system, Harrison says carefully. James Merritt just expanded it after George passed. Expanded it. Made it more aggressive. More targeted. George's version was subtle. Booking fees that seemed legitimate. Service charges buried in fine print. James turned it into something much uglier. Rowena closes her eyes. She remembers George in the early years, working beside her until midnight, celebrating every small victory, promising they would build something meaningful together. She remembers his voice, his laugh, the way he held her hand during difficult times. She also remembers the distance that grew between them in later years. The separate bedrooms. The conversations that never quite connected. The feeling that he was keeping secrets she could not name. Now she knows what those secrets were. I need to speak with the board again, she says. Rowena. I need to tell them what I've found. All of it. Including George's involvement. Harrison leans forward. If you disclose your husband's role in this, it changes everything. The founder's spouse was corrupt. It raises questions about you. About what you knew. I knew nothing. That's what everyone says. It's also the truth. Harrison holds her gaze for a long moment. I believe you, he says finally. But believing isn't the same as proving. If you go public with this, your enemies will use it against you. They'll say you're either complicit or incompetent. Either way, it undermines your credibility. Rowena stands. She walks to the window, looking out at the Cleveland skyline, at the city where she started with nothing and built something that mattered. I spent my entire adult life building Harbolite, she says. I sacrificed friendships, time with my children, my health. I believed I was creating something good. Something that would outlast me. She turns back to face Harrison. And now I discover that my partner, my husband, the person I trusted most in the world, was stealing from our company and training people to mistreat our guests. Her voice breaks just slightly. If I hide that truth, I become part of the corruption. I become another person protecting themselves instead of protecting the people who trusted us. She returns to the table, gathering the documents. I'm going to disclose everything. George's involvement. The consulting fees. The original system design. All of it. Your reputation. My reputation is meaningless if it's built on lies. Harrison is quiet for a long moment. Then he nods slowly. I'll support you. Whatever you decide. Thank you. But I need you to understand something. He leans forward. If you do this, there's no going back. The company will survive. The brand can be rebuilt. But the story of Rowena Hargrove will change forever. Stories change all the time, Rowena says. What matters is whether they end honestly. The board reconvenes at 5 p.m. Rowena presents the evidence about George. She watches faces shift through shock, denial, understanding, and finally acceptance. When she finishes, the room is silent. Franklin Pierce speaks first. Rowena, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Neither did I. What do you want us to do? Rowena looks around the table. 12 people who will decide how this story ends. I want us to tell the truth, she says. The whole truth. Not just about James Merritt and his sister. Not just about the employees who participated, but about George and about the systems that allowed this to happen. She pauses. And I want to establish a compensation fund for every guest who was wronged. Not a settlement. Not a confidential payment. A public acknowledgement that they deserve better, funded by the money George took. Marcus Webb, one of the board members who voted against disclosure, clears his throat. Mrs. Hargrove, I have a confession to make. Every head turns toward him. I knew about the consulting fees. George told me years ago. He said it was just compensation for extra work, that you were aware and approved. Rowena's eyes narrow. I was never told. I realize that now. I should have verified. I should have asked questions. But George was convincing, and I wanted to believe him. He looks down at his hands. I'll resign from the board. Effective immediately. And I'll return the fees I received from Midwest Hospitality Partners. Donald Ashford rises from his chair. So will I. The room shifts. 2 board members who fought against transparency are now surrendering, revealing their own complicity, because the weight of secrets has finally become too heavy to carry. Rowena watches them gather their things and walk toward the door. Gentlemen. They stop. Thank you, she says, for finally telling the truth. Marcus Webb nods once. Then both men are gone. The boardroom is quiet. Outside, the sun is setting over Cleveland, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Harrison Cole looks at Rowena. What now? She takes a deep breath. Now we rebuild. From the ground up. With no more secrets. The hardest truth has been spoken. But the final chapter of this story belongs to the guests who were wronged, and to a promise Rowena made 40 years ago that she intends to keep. 6 months later, Rowena Hargrove stands in the lobby of the Harbolite Grand. The chandeliers still hang from the ceiling. The marble floors still gleam. But something has changed. The air feels different. Lighter. As if the building itself has exhaled a breath it had been holding for years. Behind the front desk, new staff members greet guests with genuine smiles. The kind that reach their eyes. The kind you cannot fake. Mateo Reyes stands near the elevator, not as a bellhop anymore, but as assistant manager. The business card Rowena gave him that night led to a job interview, which led to a promotion, which led to a career built on integrity instead of survival. He nods at Rowena as she passes. She nods back. The compensation fund has distributed over $4 million to affected guests. 1,247 people received personal letters of apology, signed by Rowena herself. Many wrote back, sharing stories of humiliation that had haunted them for years, stories that finally had an ending. Margaret Chen's family received the largest settlement. Her daughter used part of the money to establish a scholarship in her mother's name. Young people studying hospitality management will learn about dignity and service, taught in honor of a woman who was denied both. James Merritt is facing criminal charges. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. Theft by deception. His lawyers are negotiating, but the evidence is overwhelming. Vanessa Torres' series In the Plain Dealer ran for 8 days and was nominated for a Pulitzer. Sloan Merritt lost her license to work in hospitality. She moved to another state, started over in a different industry. Rowena does not know if she learned anything from the experience. Some people never do. Trent Calder, the clerk who tore up her reservation, was last seen working at a car wash in a suburb outside Toledo. He has not apologized. He probably never will. Rowena walks through the lobby slowly, taking it in. She is 74 now, and the year has aged her in ways that show. More lines around her eyes. More silver in her hair. A slight stiffness in her joints that was not there before. But her spine is straight. Her eyes are clear. And her purpose remains unchanged. She stops at the front desk. A young woman stands behind the counter. Her name tag reads Elena Vasquez. She is perhaps 25, with dark hair and bright eyes and the particular nervousness of someone new to the job. Good afternoon, Elena says. Welcome to the Harbolite Grand. Do you have a reservation? Rowena smiles. I do. Under Hargrove. Elena types quickly, professionally. Her fingers move with confidence. After a moment, She looks up, and her expression shifts. Mrs. Hargrove. The founder. I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you at first. That's perfectly fine. I prefer it that way. Elena's face flushes. Your room is ready. The presidential suite. Complimentary, of course. Is there anything else I can do for you? Rowena looks at the young woman for a long moment. She sees eagerness, professionalism, the desire to do well. She also sees something else. The same potential for kindness or cruelty that exists in everyone. The same choice that Trent Calder faced on that winter night. The same choice that defines who we become. Actually, there is something, Rowena says. Elena straightens, ready to serve. I want you to remember something. Something I learned the hard way, but something worth knowing. Of course, ma'am. Rowena leans forward slightly. Every person who walks through those doors is carrying a story you cannot see. They may be tired. They may be scared. They may be the most important person you'll ever meet, or they may be no one at all. But your job, your real job, is not to judge which is which. She pauses. Your job is to treat every single one of them like they matter. Because they do. Even when they don't look like it. Even when they can't prove it. Even when it would be easier to push them away. Elena nods slowly. I understand, Mrs. Hargrove. I hope you do. Rowena straightens. Because this company was built on that principle. And now it's your turn to protect it. She accepts the key card and walks toward the elevator. Behind her, she hears Elena greet the next guest in line with warmth and professionalism. The elevator doors open. Rowena steps inside. As the doors close, she catches a glimpse of the lobby one last time. The chandeliers. The marble. The people moving through a space designed to make them feel welcome. For 40 years, she built this. For 3 years, others corrupted it. For one night, she stood at a counter and refused to be dismissed. And now, finally, the promise has been restored. No guest gets treated like a problem. The elevator rises. Rowena closes her eyes. She thinks about Margaret Chin. About all the people whose dignity was stolen. About the husband whose betrayal she could never have imagined. She thinks about Trent's face when he tore up her reservation. About Sloane's contempt. About James Merritt walking into the lobby at 2:47 a.m., believing his connections would protect him. She thinks about the lesson at the heart of it all. The way you treat someone when you think they have no power is the truest measure of who you are. The elevator reaches her floor. The doors open. Rowena Hargrove steps forward into whatever comes next. The story is over. But the lesson remains. And somewhere, right now, someone who looks like nobody special is walking into a place where they should be treated with dignity. The question is whether the person behind the counter will remember that everyone matters. And that you never truly know who you are dismissing. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that dignity is never optional and that standing up for yourself matters, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because stories like this one deserve to be heard. Every single week, we bring you true tales of ordinary people who refused to be invisible, who found their courage in impossible moments, and who proved that character is revealed when no one important is watching. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been treated like you did not matter? Have you ever been dismissed by someone who thought you had no power? Share your story, because you never know who needs to hear it. Your experience might be the encouragement someone else needs to stand up for themselves. And remember, the way the world treats you when it thinks you cannot fight back says everything about the world and nothing about your worth. You matter. You always have. And no one, not a clerk, not a manager, not anyone, has the right to make you feel otherwise. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being part of a community that believes every person deserves to be treated with kindness. Until next time.